Welcome back everyone to the weekly Mailbox, your weekly chance to ask me questions about anything you would like. Formula 1, Formula E, motorsport, anything in between. And as always, if you want to submit your question for next week's episode, all you have to do, drop it in the comment section down below, ping an Instagram message, Twitter, all that good stuff. And in today's episode, as always, I've picked out 5 of my favourite questions this week, starting off with question number 1, which comes from Kieran Stepney. Why is it taking so long, so long, Kieran, for Lewis Hamilton to sign a contract with Mercedes? Does he not want to stay, or is there something more to the story? Thank you, Kieran, for your question, but I know so many of you were asking about Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes this week. It's the hot topic. I knew it was going to come up, so let's address the situation. Heading into 2021, only a month away really from what we're expecting to be the start of the season in the form of car launches, driver launches and winter testing, Mercedes still only have one driver signed to their team, and that is Valtteri Bottas. Lewis Hamilton currently doesn't have a contract. And of course, many people jump into conclusions. Why is this the case? Is Lewis going to retire out of the blue like Rosberg did at the end of 2016? Why weren't Mercedes giving more money? Is something I've seen doing the rounds on the internet recently. I don't think it's any of that, especially the financial side of things. I don't know the personal finance history of Lewis Hamilton, but it doesn't take a genius to work out he's not short of a penny or two. So I don't think it's financial. I don't think that's Lewis Hamilton's motivation at the moment. And I actually think some of the bigger wrestling things with Hamilton and Mercedes at the moment, first of all, is contract length. I think that's the big daddy sticking point here, why a contract hasn't been signed. I would imagine Mercedes want at least 2 more seasons out of Lewis Hamilton. One next year to secure that 8th world title for both himself and for the Mercedes team, and then another year for the team to have that little bit of security heading into 2022 where there's a possibility they won't be the top dog number 1 team anymore. So for them, keeping Hamilton for at least 2 years is priority. For Hamilton, I think he wants a 1-year deal. I think he wants to be in a situation by where at the end of the season, not just the end of this year, but for several years, where at the end of the year, he can decide whether he's had enough or not. He can decide if he wants to step away from the sport or if he wants to continue. Something very, very similar to what Kimi Räikkönen has done at Alfa Romeo, albeit with a slightly smaller team, slightly further down the grid than Lewis Hamilton is at Mercedes. But I think that's the idea what Hamilton wants, where from a Mercedes point of view, I think their priority and future-proofing is within George Russell. And I think a lot of these media outlets that are reporting that Mercedes and these Hamilton contract talks are focused around George Russell, I don't think it's a financial Russell's cheaper, Hamilton's more expensive. I see it more as Mercedes wants Hamilton alongside George Russell, because having Russell and Bottas in that team in 2022, I think would be a little bit risky. And so to have that experience hand, that legendary hands of Lewis Hamilton in the car with Russell alongside him, I think that's the plan Mercedes want to go down. But I think Hamilton just wants that little bit more leeway. I'm confident a contract will be signed. Do not worry, Toto Wolff has stayed on for an extra 3 years. However, it really wouldn't surprise me if we never find out. If things are kept completely under wraps, we show up to winter testing, Lewis Hamilton is there for Mercedes, and we never really find out the minute details. We might find out the length, but I think that's it. I don't think they'll ever mention why it took so long. I think they'll keep it very much under wraps, but as always, we're going to just have to wait and see. So let's move on to question number 2, which comes from S5 Vettel fan. How would you rate your performance on this year's Chamber F1 predictions season? Hopefully you will be champ again next year. Thank you very much, dude. It wasn't my best year. If you're not aware, myself, Chamber F1, Jonty's Corner, and the F1 Word, all of us together, the 4 of us, have a little predictions game. Chamber Stuart gives us about 20 questions, random questions that we have to predict at the beginning of each season. We did it in 2019 and 2020. And yeah, 2019, I did great. Champion of the group, very happy indeed. This year, we made the decision after the pandemic started and COVID started happening. We had the complete calendar reshuffle. We'd already done our predictions. We'd already got ready as if the season was going to crack on like normal. We made the group decision to keep things as they were, knowing the prediction game would be so messy at the end of the year. But it was so much fun. If you haven't checked out the video, I know quite a few of you have come from that video over to this channel, so welcome. Hopefully you will enjoy your stay. Welcome to the team. But if you're not aware, spoiler warning, I didn't do great this year. Second last, I beat Chamber, so that's something in itself. I predicted Romain Grosjean to be on the podium. I think a lot of you that were here 12 months ago, I was optimistic about Haas's chances in 2020. I was a little bit wrong on that one, and I was very much firm that we would have a carnage Singapore Grand Prix, Grosjean would be on the podium, and that would be my moment of the season. We never even got to go to Singapore, yet alone Grosjean being anywhere near the podium in 2020, but it was a great laugh with the boys. Hopefully, we'll get to do it again next year. No confirmation on that just yet. But if we do, yeah, fingers crossed, I can do a little bit better than we did this year. And if you do want to watch that, I will leave a link in the top line of the description if I remember. If I don't, please nag me about it in the comments. I will try my best. Question number 3 comes from Ragav. What are your predictions for Formula 2 this year? Is Schwartzman the favourite to win? Are there any rookies to look out for? Thank you, dude, for your question. First up, many of you have been asking this over the winter. What am I going to be doing for Formula 2 content this year? The answer is a lot more. So at the end of last year, what I started to do is at the end of our race reviews, putting all the Formula 2 content together, which I'm going to do, but I'm also going to start a brand new separate series just about Formula 2, so we can start talking about those juicy details in the 2 sprint races that there are this year and the feature race. There's going to be so much content for me to discuss really on Formula 2. I may even get a few guests on. But what I will say is I'm so looking forward to this year. I think you're right, Ragav. I think Schwartzman is the man to beat. I thought he was so good last year, so unlucky at some stages, and actually, as the season progressed, that consistency that he was almost known for in the first half of the year drifted away a little bit. I think Schwartzman's ability is better than a lot of the drivers that finished in front of him last year, and actually, I think even if he has an average season this year, which I don't think he will, he has a great chance of securing the Alfa Romeo seat in 2022. So some of you that may not be as interested in Formula 2, what I would say, first of all, watch it. It is so much fun, so much more competitive than Formula 1. But what I also would say, remember the name Robert Schwartzman. A fantastic talent, so much potential. But it's not going to be easy for him. I think Guan Yu Zhou is another driver. It's make or break for him. Also Christian Lundgaard, both the Renault young drivers, both of which have a massive year in front of them to try and secure that Alpine drive alongside Fernando Alonso if Ocon's contract isn't retained for 2022. Guan Yu Zhou, I think, is the best overtaker on the Formula 2 grid. And Christian Lundgaard, if he can just find a little bit more consistency than he was able to do this year, I think he's going to be in a really good position to fight for the title. We've also got the likes of Oscar Piastri, the Australian, our current Formula 3 champion, moving up to F2 next year. We've got Logan Sargent, not confirmed just yet, but the man who also finished in that title hunt in Formula 3, Théo Pourchaire, also moving up to Formula 2. Yuri Vips, looks like he's finally going to get a season in Formula 2. A mega talent in one of his 3 weekends he did last year. Got a podium at Mugello. He is quick. He is feisty. Red Bull young driver. I'm probably forgetting so many, but that's my quick roundup. I think it's going to be Schwartzman, Zhou, Lundgaard, and maybe even Drugovich, who's moving over to Virtuosi. They're going to be my 4 favourites. But there are so many seats that aren't even taken yet. you're going to have to bear with me before I do predictions, but don't worry, content for Formula 2 is going to be ramped up in 2021, so hopefully we've got a lot to look forward to. Our penultimate question of this evening: if you could make your perfect Formula 1 calendar, including 23 races, what would it be? From Finley Miles, don't worry about logistics and whether it could be possible. Just get each of these races, just focus on your perfect calendar. Well, I've actually tried to be sensible here, and I have actually tried to make it logistically possible. So, this is what I've gone with. Also, just a heads up, I've gone with 24 races just so it's even on the screen. And I think 24 races, pushing it a little bit, 22 is probably the sweet spot, but there are so many tracks to try and get on this calendar. Let's crack on with it. Our first chunk of the season, our start of the year, looks like this. Starting in Australia, like normal, I'm going to say sticking with Albert Park. I love Bathurst. I would love Formula 1 to race there. I don't think it's sensible. I don't think it's safe to race Formula 1 cars at Bathurst. So we'll keep it with Albert Park. I think that's a nice way to start the season. Round 2, we're back to Bahrain. I think one of the most criminally underrated circuits on the Formula 1 calendar. That being said though, I think 2020 certainly did that track justice. The outside loop also a great option, but I'll just go with the normal circuit for my calendar. South Africa, our first new track on my perfect calendar, starting in that first flyaway rounds, the only race on my calendar in Africa. Kyalami is something I've been nagging for pretty much since day one on this channel to bring back onto the Formula 1 calendar, but also recently Josh Revel and Sim Dane did that awesome music video talking about bring back the African Grand Prix. I'm very much on board, so that's the start of my season. We then jump into this, our European leg. It's long, I know, filled with some classics. Austria is moved to 4th, starting off that European leg with a bang, fingers crossed. Monaco has to be there, my number 1 pick. It's got to be, it's so iconic, it just screams Formula 1. Baku has been awesome over the last few years. I've then re-added Portimao and Germany, which I like to think in my head anyway, is on a rotating scale, like we saw a few years ago. 1 year Hockenheim, 1 year Nürburgring. Spain stays for now, just about. Silverstone, of course. Hungary, not everyone's favourite, but I think it's good enough to stay on the calendar. And likewise with Spain and a couple more we're going to see a little bit later on. I hope with 2022 regs we see a little bit more overtaking and some of those classic Grand Prix we saw there start to come back a little bit. So I'm giving them a little bit of leeway. Of course Spa, of course Monza stay on the calendar. Our third leg of the season is our Asian leg. So we're starting that off with our connecting Grand Prix in Turkey, the best race of 2020. It's earned my favour to come back on the calendar. You all know I love Singapore. Japan, I'm mixed about, but again, I hope with those 2022 regulations, some of the best fans in the world, so much history there, it's got to be there. China, it's not one of my favourites, but like Spain and Hungary, I'm giving it a little bit of room, and I'm moving it a little bit later on our 20 whatever calendar. Then, our penultimate leg of the season, our North American leg. Canada moves later on in the year. Is that logistically possible? I've got no clue. The circuit may even be covered in snow, but let's go for it. 3 races in the USA, Circuit of the Americas, COTA, that stays, that we have at the moment, but I'm re-adding Indianapolis. I would love to go back there, and I'm also adding a brand new made-up circuit, a New York street circuit. Probably a logistical nightmare, but Formula E did it. So I'd like to think Formula 1 would be able to. Also, a night race in New York. Yes, please. Our final street circuit of the season. Mexico, I think, has been a lot of fun over the last few years. And our final 2 rounds, Brazil stays, and it's not going to be popular, but Abu Dhabi remains on the calendar. I'm giving it one final chance. This year it was terrible, but overall, really happy with that calendar. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. But just before we go, our final question also known as the audience participation question, where I flip it around and send a question back to you guys. So throw your answers in the comment section down below. But this week's question comes from Tyler F1. Who do you think will be the next Formula One world champion after Sir Lewis Hamilton? This one's up to you guys, so I'll let you all battle it out in the comment section down below. But first, I'll have my say. I'll be fair, I'll get involved as well. It's a complete guess. There is very little knowledge and common sense that can be put to this question because we've got no idea how the 2022 regulations are going to mix things up. Unless, of course, you think Bottas is going to have a great chance at taking that away from Lewis this year. Maybe even Verstappen, if Red Bull can get a bit of a better car, or Sergio Perez. But 2022, it's just about who you think's going to have the best car. Who you think is going to be in a perfect position to move from these regulations to the next one. So I'm in the comments, I'm expecting a lot of Max Verstappen's, a lot of Charles Leclerc's, I think a couple of Daniel Ricciardo's, I'd like to think a couple of George Russell's. However, I'm going to be spicy. I'm going to leave you all with something to think about. I'm going to go with Sebastian Vettel at Aston Martin, claiming his 5th world title, and maybe can get a couple in a row. Maybe even 3. Maybe could match Lewis Hamilton. Probably pushing it a little bit there. But I tell you what, I think we're going to see a big resurgence from Sebastian Vettel this year. I think Aston Martin are building something so special. Why not? Why not? I'll leave you all to fight over in the comment section down below who will be our next world champion after Lewis Hamilton. That is it for today's weekly mailbox. As always, leave your questions for next week's episode in the comment section down below. Thank you very much for watching and I hope to see you all in the next one.